First of all, thanks to Richa for having me here. It's a privilege to discuss takeaway from the summit here. And as Richa has set the context really clearly, what I'm going to discuss about is as a leader, when I joined the summit, what are the key takeaways that I took back and I'm going to implement maybe in a couple of years, starting with short-term and long-term plans, right? So I'm really thrilled to welcome you to this session where we're going to bridge the gap between summit signals and the strategic decisions that actually move the needle in our engineering organizations. Like I said, last month I attended the India AI Summit. It was a massive event, but for today, it's not about the hype, or it's about those high-level discussions translate into the real-world choices that we are going to make as leaders. So for those, again, I haven't met, I'm Tuhin. As a global engineering leader, I've spent my career scaling platforms and leading teams at several large organizations. And currently I'm focusing on platform engineering in a healthcare space. This is a special session for our CTO community here in March 2026. And what I've done is I've distilled my practitioner perspective from Summit to give you a concrete takeaway that you can plug directly into your own AI strategy, as I assume that all of you are leading in a leading position, leading your organizations. And by the end of the talk, my goal is to help you to see the signals to the noise so that you can make more informed data-driven decisions for a roadmap over the next 12 to 24 months. And as Richa mentioned, should you have any questions, raise your hand or just contact Richa. As a moderator, she will make sure that your questions are addressed. So I want to start by framing why this summit was truly a watershed moment. It wasn't just another industry event. It was the convergence of scale, massive capital, and a system level thinking. And it's critical that we understand this as leaders. To give you a sense of what's happening, look at the numbers. We had over 5 lakh visitors. To put that into the perspective, that attendance level eclipses the biggest annual global tech events. We had representatives from 100 countries and 15 heads of governments, which signals that this is now a top tier global summit. We also saw close to 250 billion committed to AI infrastructure. And we even set a Guinness World Record with over 2.5 lakh students taking pledge for responsible AI. But here is the real reason this matters to us. India is positioning itself as a use case powerhouse. By aggressively solving the world's hardest constraints like massive scale, language diversity, and limited connectivity, we're creating innovative patterns that are now globally exportable. So nobody can really ignore India. And as I unpack this, you'll see how we're also taking a lead in terms of defining the standards, how things should be done, and taking a lot of this high-level 50,000-foot concepts to the ground. So in this session, I'm going to break down the system architecture behind this from DPI rails to sector stacks. Because of the limited time, I'll only focus on certain sectors which are close to my heart. I'll also walk you through the deep dives into some of the production data from education, agriculture, and healthcare, as I said. And finally, I'll lay out 5 constraints and 4 strategic moves that you need to audit against your own roadmap. So my own goal for this talk is to for you to walk away seeing this, that this was just not a tech conference. It was a masterclass in capital, policy, and grassroots alignment to every builder that needs to be paying attention to. So in a uniqueness of this was when I was in those rooms in the summit, what I was looking at is beside me, there are people who are from non-tech background. Some of them were from agriculture background, some of them from legal background. We had a lot of policymakers, government officials, secretaries, head of states, IS officers. So that's a very important melting pot, especially for us leaders, where we get to talk to the policymakers. And that makes a lot of difference just as compared to going to another tech conference. Now, let's look at these first. So I want to quickly focus on these 3 layers that I'm going to take you through. And the layer, these are all related to the DPI, digital public infrastructure. So the first layer, the layer 1, as we call it, is horizontal DPI rails. First, we have the DPI rails. These are the digital public infrastructure that acts as our foundation. We're talking about an identity at a scale the world has never seen. Say, for instance, Aadhaar covering 1.4 million people, and Abha, those of you who are not familiar, it's Ayushman Bharat Health Account, providing over 739 billion health IDs. But it's not just the identity. The Bhashini layer is now powering across 22 languages. And the government is backing this with a public pool of 38,000 GPUs with 20 10,000 more coming online shortly. So you can imagine the amount of infrastructure that has been already laid out. Now going to the vertical sector stacks, like, so I'm going to focus on few sectors. We have sector stacks. These are like pre-built domain-specific solutions. So in healthcare, we are seeing the integration of SAHI governance and both validation frameworks. I'll shortly touch upon these things. In agriculture, we have hit 95% crop identification accuracy in regions like Madhya Pradesh, impacting over 1 million farmers. Even in manufacturing, we have 29 robotic startups through Art Park building towards almost 1 billion industry towards the Industry 5.0 goal. And all the data that I'm presented here, these are all available in the public. And most of it were a direct derivative of the summit attendance, because these are the things that were highlighted in the summit as to how we are preparing as a nation to take the ecosystem forward. And last but not the least is the ecosystem capital. So third layer, the financial backbone, what I call the government as infrastructure banker. So we are now seeing a massive commitments, right? So we have 10,300 crores AI fund, 20,000 crores for deep tech R&D, and 40,000 crores for semiconductor mission 2.0. So when you combine this with billions committed by large global organizations, the sheer gravity of capital is undeniable, right? Now, as a leader, what's your reflection? What my reflection is, real insight that I want to share is solving unique constraints like low bandwidth and 19,000 dialects is creating a globally defensible pattern. It forces us to build differently. And this is where I want to also leave you with a question, like, look at your own roadmap. And I want to ask yourself hard question, like, in this new architecture, are you a railroad rider who consumes these DPIs? Are you a rail layer builder who's building this? Or you're a specialist owning a deep vertical IP? And now I start focusing on the sectoral insights, starting with the education. I think we all, as technologists, we all understand the value of our education. The challenge is we are architecting the AI for the hardest environment imaginable. Those of us who are in big cities probably will not know, but those of us who have the roots to back to the villages, we know how we have all grown up and the kind of infrastructure that still exists in some of the rural settings, right? So if I tell you that India has 1.2 lakh single teacher schools, so can you imagine like the amount of pressure that will be there in those schools on the teachers who has to teach all the kids being a lone teacher in that school? We're also facing 1 million teacher vacancies and digital literacy rate is just 38%. So in these settings, if we don't help people learn AI, there is a talk like AI will be done to them. They will be left behind. The other part is, as we looked into this, there has been a lot of focus from different industry bodies, academia. So there is already a policy being formed, and everything that I'm sharing here, those have been discussed in some presentation or in some summit talk or some kind of roundtable discussions that either me or my CTO friends were part of. So one of these is offline first. So the first design rule here is that connectivity is a luxury still in India for a lot of places. Since 65% of this area lack meaningful digital access, our platforms must be offline first by necessity. We can't build roadmaps that break the moment the signal drops. Saying we are architecting the AI for the hardest of the environments. India's 1.2 lakh single teacher schools with 38% digital literacy. Reality is, if we don't help people learn AI, as we said, like AI will be done to them. The first pillar is the connectivity is a luxury, as I said, offline first. Since 65% of these areas lack access, our platforms must be offline first by necessity. So we can't build roadmaps that breaks when the signal drops, just like what happens now, right? And then voice first. So we have to solve the 19,000 dialects problem. Typing is a barrier. We have a lot of time come to some examples where even typing is not going to be helping you. Voice is the ultimate bridge across literacy levels. If your UX is not voice first, then in these regions effectively it is invisible. And when it comes to the edge inference, we architect for hardware scarcity. It's common to see devices with less than 1 GB of RAM. This focuses us to move away from the cloud and run lightweight models directly on the device. So what is the leadership takeaway that people like us should think about? We have to think like if we are riding the rail, executing this vision, rail layer building this infra, or again, a specialist. So you have to choose your spot. You cannot solve for everything. So your design choices must reflect that particular role. Okay. So I'll now move on to the next slide, Richa, if you may change the slide, please. Yeah. So coming to agriculture and manufacturing. Now this is where ROI-driven views are very critical. The reason being the margins are very thin. So, and this is where AI moves from the field and the factory floor. In these sectors, margins are, like I said, razor thin, 2% to 5% a lot of times, meaning we have to be obsessed with cost discipline. Now, there are some rays of hope. Let's say in agriculture, we achieved 95% crop identification accuracy in Madhya Pradesh. This slashes fraud and restores trust. Tools like AgriShield AI, and I would definitely recommend all you guys to go and Google about AgriShield. It's an amazing product, delivering climate guidance at near zero cost. And Bhashini, the multilingual framework, is automating, already has automated close to 1,15,000 Gram Sabha meetings. So these were all fascinating facts that came out of the summit. And later I did my own research along with my friends in CTO, other CTO communities, and we were fascinated by this. So if you are building a product, please keep these things in your mind, that these are the things that you have to factor in. Coming to the manufacturing. So our North Star is a 1 trillion industry 5.0 goal. So targeting human-centric automation for MSMEs. ROI has to land in weeks, not in quarters, right? So you can't afford to have bloated AI. A lot of people that we are closely working with AI, especially in the corporate settings, we have a lot of funds to earn. But that's not what is going to work out if you are working for an MSME. So the focus has to be on the ROI from the day one. So what would be like if you are a CTO or if you are a technical leader, what's your takeaway? The discipline is here. Cost per prediction must be less than 1 rupee. And that's also another fascinating part that I want to add that came from the summit. So, I mean, we all know this term, right? And especially in Indian context, call it the kitna deti hai. So it actually was that entire spirit throughout the summit that I felt. Everything was very grounded. People came with big claims, right? We all know the big companies, they come with big claims. I'll do this and that. That's not required. But everybody was asked hard questions. And the thing that I loved most I attended a lot of sessions. Most of the sessions I could attend, there were questions which are absolutely unfiltered, coming from the people in the ground. I have seen students ask questions to CEOs. I have seen literally like farming executives, right? They ask question to the chief secretary of farming sector. And those questions are blunt, directly, like, okay, isme mera kya fayda hoga? What's going to happen? So unless you get to that clarity with your solution, this is not going to work out. And for Indian specifically, that's where I see a lot of startups and a lot of these ecosystems are working great on that part. Now, coming to healthcare, a specific area that I come from. So I was part of a particular meeting where two of the very important frameworks, SAHI and BODH, were launched. So SAHI is basically a framework that defines the life cycle of healthcare products that will have AI. And the problem I'll tell you, like before that, let me take you back to one story that I was also monitoring, right? I mean, we are all technologists, most of us here. We all are kind of CTOs or running technical orgs in our larger organizations. There was a case where there was a diabetic retinopathy clinic somewhere in Punjab, and they used AI. Okay, so the models that they use for detecting the diabetic retinopathy, they had 99.6% accuracy. They detected it very well, right? And what happened after that was there was only 14% follow-up rate. So this is the 86% problem, as I said. You have detected it, but most of the people didn't even go and did the next level of treatment. And my question to all of you as technical leaders, as leaders of organizations, how are we going to solve this with AI? If you don't have the right infrastructure, right mindset, and right ecosystem. Now, again, this is where this three-pronged approach really helps. We're starting with, say, ABHA, Ayushman Bharat Health Account. We have 793 million health accounts using, those of you who are familiar with healthcare, FHR R4 standards. This is the data operations, data interop standards. It actually makes the patient ID be visible in multiple providers, and the data can get exchanged seamlessly. Then we have these two frameworks. So as I said, I was part of the inaugural meeting where our Honorable Health Minister, JP Nadda, he kind of unveiled these two frameworks. One is called SAHI and the other one is called BODH. The SAHI framework is, again, brainchild of the government. They have worked with all the right departments, World Health Organization also. And it's a governance framework covering full AI lifecycle. I'm not going to go detail in it. You can always go and check our government websites that are covering it. My point of focus is the BODH one. The BODH framework is an amazing framework. Again, it has come out of IIT Kanpur. And what it uses is how to test the applications or the offerings that you are doing in this space. Today, you see a lot of big claims by a lot of big people, like I'm going to solve this, I'm going to solve that. They aggregate the data. All of it is happening in a very non-compliant way. What both does is you can think of it like a test framework. You put your data, you put your application in it runs its own test cases, and it certifies you whether you are doing it correct. And going forward, government is going to mandate that anybody using any kind of application in the healthcare space, it has to be BODH certified. And BODH also has a rich data set and rich set of APIs that the hospitals can actually use even to prune their data. Say, for instance, you as a hospital, you have some models running. Some hospitals in India, they have already started experimenting with it. They are actually calling the BODH APIs, which are publicly hosted, and then they are changing the weightage within their models. So they are basically making the models more efficient, not by exposing their data, but using some curated data and some scrubbed data without the PHIs. So again, going by format that you're following, as a leader, what's your takeaway? So it's like, don't just optimize for technical metrics, right? Look for the real ROI. Look for, I told you, how do you gap, right? The workflow fit and the human override gates. So, Risha, if you may move to the next slide, please. Okay. So here is what I'm going to quickly leave you with 5 constants that reshaping, I feel, your roadmap. Often enterprise structural blockers that break our plans. Now, let's look at what I feel are those blockers. One is the talent depth. In this call, most of us are leaders. And we would agree that 16% of global AI talent, as per data, is Indian. But the depth is shallow in governance, right? We are too focused on the implementation. So the suggestion to all of you is hire for learning velocity, not just algorithm skills, because as we mature, those will become more critical for you to be successful in the market. Next is compute sovereignty. Now, India creates 20% of global data, but controls only 4% of compute infra. So we must architect for scarcity using edge inference and quantization. What I mean is, don't always think that you'll have a big data center at your disposal. Those are coming up, but your strategy shouldn't be always focusing on the law of plenty. Have a scarcity mindset, have frugal mindset, and that's when probably you will be more successful. Then legacy system debt. So fix your pipes before you put smart water through them, as they said, right? If you don't have your data strategy, if you don't have the data pipelines, so AI readiness is only as good as your platform readiness. As a platform leader, I'll emphasize on this. However smart applications or ideas you have, if your platform doesn't support that, you're never going to get it. Next is language and inclusion, especially for India. So English only, strategically locked out for 60% of the users. So my suggestion is, and I'm going to do this, is partner with Bashini rather than reinventing the wheel. We also have other players, Indian players coming up with multilingual support. Please go and take their support as well. And then regulatory ambiguity. The reputational risk is asymmetric. I mean, those of you who are senior leaders, you understand once you lose your market reputation, it is next to impossible to gain that back, right? So you have to put a lot of focus on regulatory, especially I being from healthcare. India's healthcare system is not going to be the same as probably it is or it was. Given the ambition that I saw in the government and some of the private players, we are going to up the ante as far as regulatory is concerned. So focus on that. Now, Richa, if you may just change the slide, please. Yeah, so these are my strategic moves that I got out of the summit. So if I was probably in charge of some organization, I'm going to do a portfolio audit. So stop building what the DPI already provides. Use Aadhaar, UPI, and Vashini so that you can focus on resources on unique value. Next is positioning myself in ecosystem. Decide your role, if I am a rail rider or a rail layer builder or a specialist. This dictates your trade-offs between cost and speed. Third one is, like I mentioned in the last slide, governance as the discipline. So take governance to the board level, implement model cards, bias audits, and human review gates as first-class citizens of your code. So this cannot be an afterthought. And those of you who are from platform world, probably you will understand, like we talked about DevSecOps sometimes, right? So in my opinion, this is that kind of moment where security or compliance cannot be an afterthought. It has to be first class citizen, it has to be in the day one of your product planning. And voice first vernacular. So if your product doesn't work for a voice or only particular language, and it always requires a typed input, then it is not ready for India. So we should be partnering with platforms like Vasini from day one. Okay. So with that, I'll move on to the next slide, Richa. Yeah. So just kind of we're almost on the closing note. So 86 nations signed the India AI Declaration. Those of you don't know, and AI belongs to everyone. So like I said, I saw farmers, weavers co-creating solutions alongside researchers. So there was a session where I think from nearby villages of Delhi, there were close to hundreds of weavers and different kind of women entrepreneurs are brought in. And I think TCS was running a session with them where they were teaching and at the same time learning from them what are the problems they face in daily life and some of the solutions TCS were offering. When I was there in the debrief of that session, I think it was either in the internet as well as I was there. So in the debrief, the particular scientist who was coordinating or moderating that session, they said like, they learned more than they are able to teach, because that's the kind of stuff this summit has done. And then sovereign AI, we have 6 to 7 foundational Indian models in the pipeline. So those of you who are probably not aware, there is an app already called Dharma app. It's an AI app on the judicial side, and a pilot has already gone amazingly good. So it's already seeing 156% lift in the convictions. You know, our legal and judiciary is very talent with overwhelming numbers, lack of judges and all that. So AI is actually helping them, and government is doing a lot of pilot like this Dharma app, as I said. Please feel free to go and Google about it to learn more. Employability, that's a very hot topic. We all are directly impacted by this. So AI literacy, it's kind of the new Excel. If you think about 20 years back, with Excel, you used to get a lot of jobs, right? So when we train people properly, we close to see 70% productivity gain. Now we are building AI that serves humanity and that amplifies human dignity. I do understand personally that there is a larger fear of job loss and all that, but as leaders, let us not focus on that. Let us think, how can we train our people? How can we make them more powerful, empower them, and reimagine those workflows? Something that someone is doing today, they might be doing something different next day if you have the open-mindedness to learn, and AI is there to help you. And the final reflection is, are you designing for humans in the lead? I mean, we all know this hunky-dory term like HITL, human in the loop. That feels like you're just part of the loop and you are not in the lead. Think about how can you put humans in the lead? Can your people override the model when the context demands? That is the mark of leadership I'm looking at. So my last slide, Richa. So again, just want to quickly reiterate. So the strategy must be about bridging the gap between tech speed and organizational readiness. Where is your readiness gap? You need to understand that. Which constraints? Is it talent, compute, legacy depth? All of it that you have to properly align and put a strategy. Are you a rider or you are a builder on those digital risks that I talked about? And finally, what does it mean for your brand if your people are truly in the lead? Please reimagine all your workflows, reimagine your brand. The capital and infra is there, trust me. There are a lot of government organizations who are ready to extend their hands. Should you have the right kind of proposal and right kind of plan in your mind? It's about how we translate them. And so, like I said, personally, it was I think, life-changing event for me. I have never attended such huge summit. I've been to many parts of the world and I've attended many summits, both in a personal capacity and from my organizations. But this summit was really different, as you can see. And everything that I said in this as a gist of my understanding, everything is connected to the summit. So if we may go to the next slide, Richa. So again, I want to thank you. Please stay connected. And again, I want to extend my thanks to the community, CTO community, and especially Richa for having me here. I'll be more than happy to stay connected, continue the conversation. And should you have any questions, please feel free to let me know. I'm also always available. And these are the two places where you can reach me out. One is my portfolio website and of course in LinkedIn. So with that in mind, thanks again for listening to me. And thanks, Richa, for allowing me to share my thoughts with your community.